Hi, my name is Melissa Francis, and my nickname is Mimi. I go by the name Mimi because it's a nickname my family always used for me. I started with Child Protective Services about 5, almost 6 years ago, and it became a conscious decision to use that nickname. I did it because children are comfortable with an easy name. If they could say Mama, they could say Mimi. And I also know culturally that some people use Mimi to mean grandmother. They use it to mean blanket, or they say go Mimis, as in go night night, and hopefully that means a safe and sound sleep. Also, I use that nickname because it reminds me not to take myself so seriously. I have a tendency to do that, and throughout my life I always wanted to be Melissa because it was professional, and that's always what I wanted to have my image portray. Part of being professional was getting a good sense of who I was academically. It was a huge part and is still a huge part of my identity. I've been going to school for quite a while. I've had about a 12-year gap, but I did go straight from college to a graduate program that I was in for 8 years, then taking a break until I started back here, getting my master's program last semester. So some of the things that help me symbolize that are my books that I've had for years. Some of them are really old. And I read a lot on children's issues, I always have, and also political economy, more popular books, but it's a field that fascinates me. So it's something that I enjoy reading. My mother worked for Child Protective Services when I was a teenager. That influenced me quite a bit, as did both my parents, my father, Bill Francis, and my mother. They are both in the, service industry. My father worked for the military and retired from that, and then went on to civil service and retired from that. My mother took about 10 years following my father around, raising my sister and I, to get her degree, and then ultimately started working for Child Protective Services and retired from doing that. I thought I would never do that job. Seeing her work that hard for that little money, no way. But I ended up going and getting my degree in anthropology. Culture has always been an important part of my life. It's something that I've had to learn through discovering my own identity and understanding how other people perceive themselves and perceive childhood, and particularly became part of my academic pursuit. So I was really intrigued by the Finn article that we read today, and also some of those authors are very familiar. Carolyn Sargent and Nancy Shepherd Hughes were big influences on me in my anthropology life. I respect them greatly, and the work that they've done with women and also with children. So that's a big part of my identity, is being an academic, being a professional, and now working for Child Protective Services. I chose to work for Child Protective Services because of some painful experiences I went through in my past. I was very fortunate to have my beautiful son, Will, who's now 10 years old. He is a goofball. And he also changes his hair quite often. Oh, you can see there. But he has so many wonderful qualities. But when I was pregnant with him, I got sick and had a series of surgeries because of complications that devastated me in a lot of ways. And so I have some examples, I guess, of what that life is now like for me, with a lot of different pills for different things that I, as you can see, don't often take. I have orthopedic shoes. I have to wear stockings for a blood clot. And however, the positive side is that I started running last year, and my first number for my first mud run. And I also bought these high heels when I learned that I would be able to walk. And I came out of all of that experience knowing that I needed to do something more with my life. I enjoy being a mother. I knew I had to work, because unfortunately something I lost through all of that was my husband that I'd been with for 17 years. Wasn't something that he could overcome. And I needed to be strong for my son. It's given me a sense of strength that I never knew I had. I never knew I was that kind of a strong person that could do so much. But I also know that I'm only that strong because I have wonderful parents. I have a support system with my community of faith, with my community of friends, with my son's friends, and most importantly, because I've had some privileges. My father is white and my mother is Hispanic, so I have privileges from both that, but obviously the white privilege that comes from being white, having a last name is Francis. I do have an academic and strong academic background because I was able to go to college. That was something my parents could afford to do for me. And I always had a sense of purpose when I was growing up, and a sense of service because of the experiences that my parents had and they gave me. But I also have, from my Hispanic heritage, a understanding of the world that is not just a Western idea. I have a sense of the spiritual being very present in my life, that prayer is a physical manifestation and can heal, which I do believe that it did for me. And I also don't always just take those pills. I believe in the power of positive thinking. I believe that in a lot of different cultural things that my mother raised me with. I don't necessarily believe that the herbs and the egg are going to heal me, but I do believe that having people pray over me and all of those things and the experience itself does heal. So having a dual identity, being bicultural, calling myself the other, having two different religious experiences growing up have helped me understand culture in a very personal way. It also led me to want to study culture by being an anthropologist, and then later to graduate school studying children because of the experiences that my mother had and introduced me to as a child and as a teen. And because I went through all of those physical issues, I have an empathy for parents, because I do understand it's not just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There's a lot more to it that goes into changing your life and healing your life. And I've had different incarnations of who I am professionally, and my best incarnation of who I am personally is who I am today. And I wouldn't have had all of that had I not gone through those trials and tribulations that I never thought I would come out of. And that's something that I hope can help the parents that I work with and the youth that I serve too, because I do believe that people can change. And I could have easily been a drug, addicted parent who no longer had her child had I not had all of the supports, all of the privileges that I do have. And in working with the globalization, so I think I touched on my personal and then flowed into my environment pretty easily, because for me it is so connected. I do not see my own personal self without all of those connections coming through. Even talking with my hands is very cultural to me. It's something that only one side of my family does, not the other, so I see it very easily. But even my community of faith, I chose to become a Methodist, influenced by my experience when I went to SMU with some of the work that I did up there and research, and seeing that Methodists were very strongly about service to their community, which is something that I grew up with with my parents. And having parents of two different faiths also let me understand that there was such a thing, and that I could choose. And that's been a big influence on me, to be able to make those choices and study and be accepting of other faiths in my personal and professional life. And so that's something that I hope to continue learning about going forward, because though I've studied some religions, I've not always been personally exposed to them. And for my time dimension, I feel like I already do take into consideration globalization. It influenced what I wanted to do academically and what I'm doing professionally now, and what I hope to do professionally in the future. I have studied, just like the Finn article, the impact that globalization has on children, on children's rights, and on the voices that we have of our children. I do believe that children have their own voices, and in our popular culture here in the U.S., we do have a lot of things that we talk about, even such thing as a tween. When did that exist? That didn't exist when I was that age, but understanding that they have economic power that they used to not have. And so many shows are really geared towards that age set, trying to tap into that marketplace. And there were some articles I read very early on in my career which also influenced me towards wanting to work with and influence change for children. Were some books and articles I read about children who grew up in the Belfast area of Ireland, and those religious, cultural, and militaristic aspects of their life that so strongly shaped their identity as youth. And I see that still going on today throughout the world.